Hello guys, this is my new series on MySQL and MySQL connector. As I told in my previous video of CSV, in the last part or at the last duration, I told you that I'm going to create a series where I'm going to talk about MySQL and MySQL connector. And my main focus or my biggest concern would be MySQL connector with Python, because in my platform or I should say in my YouTube channel, I'm going to teach you Python programming language. Okay, but I'll still try to teach you MySQL. So first let us understand what MySQL is. Okay, MySQL is actually a RDBMS. Okay, let me write it. BMS. BMS. What is RDBMS? It's actually a relational database management system. Okay, it is a management system where you handle data in the form of relational database. Okay, what do you mean by relational database? Relational database means handling data in the form of tables. Okay, tables means rows and column. Okay, so relational database means handling data in the form of table where you can adjust your data in columns and rows. Okay, so MySQL is a platform and SQL is the language used in that platform. You can create database here. I hope you know what database is. Database is collection of data. So in MySQL you can create data, you can create tables inside the data, and you can store your information. And a large amount of information can be stored in MySQL. Okay, so yeah, so this is what MySQL is. If you want to learn more, you can actually search in Google about it. This was a brief description. Okay, so first let us talk about installation. Okay, so hashtag first installation. Okay, so first let us talk about installation. The installation of MySQL I'll give you in the description. Okay, so it would be in the description. Okay, the short form description. And for MySQL connector, I'll show you. You just have to write pip install in the cmd, okay, command line. Or if you're using if you're not using Windows, there might be command line. Okay, so install pip install MySQL slash connector slash Python. Okay, so let's get started with installation. Right, so first we have to copy the Python location. So you write Python, you get this 3.832 bits. It's an application. All right, so you go to open file location, and here you see it's a shortcut. I've explained you a lot. I've explained in my previous video also how to do pip installation. Okay, so 3.832 bits. It's a shortcut. It's not a real file location. So you will open file location, right? You have to go to script. This is where pip installed. I've installed a lot of PIPs or modules, I should say. So control C, copy this. Right, now we have to open command line or cmd. So you have to write cd control V inside. Okay, now you are inside the script file. Here you have to download. So pip install install MySQL dash connector dash Python. Okay, enter. So yeah, requirement already satisfied as I've already downloaded. After this installation, you just have to check if it's perfectly installed or not. So import MySQL dot connector. Okay, to import MySQL connector, you have to write MySQL dot connector, and let us see if it's running or not. Yeah, finished. So it's running perfectly. Okay, so here you can write as con, because I have told you that if import or if a module is very large, if its name is very large, you can shorten it by writing as command. Okay, so that because you have to use import or module, right, con dot, you have to use a lot of things. I'll say cursor or something else. So it's very difficult to write MySQL dot connector and dot a method, right? It can make you confusing. Okay, it will make you confused about the syntax, and you have to make something simple. You have to make Python program simple. That's the basics of Python. When I learned Python in grade 10th, I learned that Python is a very simple language. I learned it via Cybrary. So I learned that Python is a very simple language. The basics of Python is to keep everything simple. Okay, so Python mysql.connector as con. After that, okay, after that it's gonna be really complicated. After that you have to connect the database. Let me tell you something about MySQL. Right, when you install MySQL, you have to set the username and you have to set the password. You should memorize your username and password. Okay, for example, db for database. So I'm going to connect my database. So you have to write con, right? Con.connect, that's the method, and parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis you have to pass some arguments. Okay, so which is host is equal to localhost, this remains the same for every user, comma user is equal to root. In my case it is root, and also in default case it is root. If you have not changed or you didn't recognize the user, you didn't find any option to change the username, it's for default root. Okay, so you just have to write root. If it's not working with anything, you just have to write root, comma password. Okay, you have to write the password. In my case it is ZHEW0440. Okay, and here you have to write database is equal to whatever the database, but we are not actually clear with database. Okay, so the second is cursor. Okay, cur, I'll name it as cur. What is cursor? Cursor helps you execute in the MySQL. First you have connected with the database, right? The second is that after connecting with the database or after connecting with MySQL, you have to run some code, you have to execute some code. Okay, so for that we use cursor, right? For execution, that means for if I go here tool and I'm executing, I'm going to see Python repair, I'm going to this, so I'm using my cursor, right? So similar to that, cursor will actually identify or help you execute or help you select certain database, certain tables, like a cursor, like a normal cursor. Okay, so you have to write database, so dot cursor, it's that simple. Okay, it's that simple. So after that you have to write cur dot execute and whatever you want to execute, right? So first actually I have to tell you what you have to execute, right, in MySQL. So let's move to MySQL. So you have to write MySQL client. Okay, remember you have to work in command line client. So here you have to write your password, and please choose your password very effectively so that you can memorize it, so that you don't forget it at any point of time whenever you're doing MySQL connector. So right, so first let us check whatever database we have, what databases we have. So you have to simply write show databases. The syntax are very simple for MySQL as well. Show databases, these are my database. So I'll actually create database. Okay, so you have to write create database. Let's name it YouTube, right? YouTube. Yeah, query okay, one row affected. So let us see what are the databases. I'm sorry, databases, right? So yeah, this is the databases, and you see we have YouTube, right? So to use YouTube or to access any table in YouTube, you just have to write use YouTube. Okay, you just have to write use YouTube and database change, and you have to write show tables. Yeah, so it's an empty set. That means there is no table inside YouTube because we just created that database, right? So let us try this in Python connector. So it's very simple. Cur dot execute, you just have to execute cur dot execute show databases bases. You don't have to write this expression, okay, semicolon. You don't have to write in the Python programming language, okay, but you do have to write in MySQL command line. Okay, I hope that's clear. So let us run this. Yeah, has no object connector. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to write here connect. I'm sorry, that's gonna be, yep, finished. But we are not the program does not showcase us with our databases. So what do we have to do? We have to fetch the information. So you have to write cur dot fetch all. Fetch all means you have to fetch everything, right? So print cur dot fetch all, control S, control V. So you see these are the databases we are working with, or I have already in my MySQL data. So we are gonna use YouTube for this series. Okay, so fetch all means fetch all. You are fetching everything. What if I write fetch one? Let's control B. So I get the first one. Okay, I get the first database, or I get the first data. Okay, if it's a list, I get the first index. So I hope you understand fetch all statement. Okay, let me tell you again something. What if you have to access some database, right? For example, I have to access, there is a, let me see what all databases there are. Sorry. Yeah, control S, control B. Yeah, so what if I have to open a database called project? Okay, what if I have to open database called project? So I have to write cur, or just let me, yeah. So in the next line I have to write cur dot execute again, and I have to write use project, right? Control S, control V, or control S, control V. So yeah, I am now using project, and after that I have to write cur dot execute show tables, right? Execute. So for every execution you have to write cur dot execute, cur dot execute. Okay, cur dot execute use, or I should say show tables. Let's control B. Oh, sorry, I forgot to write print fetch all. Print cur dot fetch all. Let's control B. So yeah, let me just write print statement here. So yeah, so these are the tables I have in my project. Okay, so that's how I fetch, or I get the information from MySQL. Okay, so what if I don't want this? What if I have already chosen in my mind that I have to work with project database? So how to reduce this? So there's one more thing inside this parenthesis, what you can add. So you can add comma database, and whatever database you are going to use, or you're going to deal with or manipulate with. Okay, so yeah, I want to use project, or yeah, project. So I would not require these. Yeah, that's control B. Still working. Okay, so I think you have understand successfully how to access MySQL connector, how to access MySQL, and how to show database, how to identify database, how to show tables, how to execute tables in MySQL command line as well. So I think that's it, and that's all for the video. Thank you for watching.